For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Russia is accusing the U.S. of waging a proxy war against it after Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit and address to Congress last night, where he lobbied for continued support in fending off Russia's war in Ukraine.
It's an investment in the global security and democracy that we handle in the most responsible way.
President Joe Biden announced more than $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine earlier in the day during a press conference with Zelensky. 1,000 religious leaders and peace activists are calling for a Christmas truce in Ukraine. They said in a written and video statement the demand is inspired by a Christmas truce that occurred during World War I along the Western Front between German and British troops.
We urge our government to take
a leadership role
in ending the war in Ukraine by calling
for a ceasefire and negotiated settlement.
We pray they do this before more people are killed and wounded,
and millions more are displaced from their homes.
Before the growing crisis in global hunger and poverty worsens,
and before the conflict
results in a nuclear war that could devastate
the world's ecosystems and annihilate
all of God's
creation. The signatories say the way out of war in Ukraine will not be a military solution. They say they believe a temporary ceasefire could be the first step towards a negotiated peace. In the U.S., the Biden administration is moving to make more prescription medicine available amidst a trifecta of COVID-19, influenza, and RSV infections, dipping into the nation's stockpile to do so. Sagar Magani reports.
This year's flu season has hit early and hard.
Probably the worst flu outbreak we've seen in a decade.
White House COVID-19 response chief Dr. Ashish Jha said last week there's a lot of flu out there, and in some cases, not enough medicine after a spike in RSV cases. Some people are having trouble finding over-the-counter medicine, particularly for kids. The FDA says the antibiotic amoxicillin is also in short supply due to high demand. The administration's releasing doses of Tamiflu from the Strategic National Stockpile. States will be able to ask for them from the Health and Human Services Department, which last week announced it would let states dip into their own Tamiflu stocks. Sagar Magani, Washington.
The United Nations Security Council has approved its first ever resolution on Myanmar, demanding an immediate end to the violence there and urging its military coup rulers to release all detained political prisoners, including former leader Aung San Suu Kyi. The council vote was 12-0 with 3 abstentions: China, Russia, and India. Myanmar's UN representative is a holdover from the ousted civilian government. He said the resolution didn't go far enough.
We are clear this is only a first step. As such, the National Unity Government calls on the UNSC, building on this resolution, to take further and stronger action to ensure the swift end of the military junta and its crimes.
Last month, the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners, which monitors human rights, says more than 16,000 people had been detained on political charges in Myanmar since the army coup. Of those arrested, more than 13,000 were still in detention. The association said at least 2,465 civilians have been killed since the 2021 takeover, although the number is thought to be far higher. Temperatures are plunging across the U.S. far and fast as a massive winter storm forms ahead of the Christmas weekend. The system's promising heavy snow, ice, flooding, and powerful winds across a broad swath of the U.S. The National Weather Service reports temperatures across the central high plains plummeted 50 degrees Fahrenheit in just a few hours. In much of the country, the weekend could be the coldest in decades. The Weather Service says the storm is so large and encompassing about 190 million people were under some sort of winter weather advisory. Montana and Wyoming are likely the coldest, with below 30-degree temperatures. Nearly 107,000 Americans died of drug overdoses last year, according to final figures released today at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That's 16% higher than the nearly 92,000 overdose deaths in 2020. The cryptocurrency entrepreneur Sam Bankman-Fried is expected to make his initial U.S. court appearance today on charges he swindled investors and looted customer deposits on his FTX trading platform. Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas last week and was flown to New York late yesterday after not fighting his extradition. While he was in the air, the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan announced 2 of his closest business associates had also been charged and secretly pled guilty. Homeless advocates, city officials, and religious leaders across the country gathered as part of the National Homeless Memorial, a day to remember those who have died while living on the streets yesterday. Communities across the country staged events to commemorate the day from Washington, D.C. to California. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.